As we age, life takes on new priorities. The energy we once spread across many areas becomes more precious. And the quality of our relationships plays a pivotal role in determining our overall well-being. While family bonds can offer comfort, support, and joy, not all relationships are beneficial. Some connections may drain us emotionally, detracting from the peace and fulfillment we seek in our golden years. This script delves into the types of relatives you might want to reconsider visiting as you grow older. It is not about abandoning family or severing ties out of malice, but about preserving your peace, mental health, and well-being. Below, we explore these relationships, provide real-life anecdotes, and discuss actionable steps to navigate such dynamics. 1. The judgmental relative. Relatives who thrive on judgment often have a profound impact on one's emotional well-being. These individuals exhibit a pattern of criticizing life choices, offering unsolicited advice, and casting judgment on decisions made by others. Their words, often sharp and dismissive, can cut deeply, leaving emotional scars that linger long after the interaction has ended. This behavior is particularly impactful because it strikes at the core of self-esteem and inner peace, which are essential for a fulfilling life, especially in later years. The effect of judgmental relatives is more significant than it might initially seem. Criticism from family carries a unique weight because it comes from individuals who are expected to provide support and understanding. When this expectation is subverted by harsh judgment, the emotional fallout can be severe. These interactions often force one to second-guess past decisions, undermining confidence and creating a sense of dissatisfaction. For example, Susan, a retiree who finds joy and fulfillment in gardening, faces frequent criticism from a relative who insists she should be traveling instead. Over time, these remarks lead Susan to question her own happiness, even though her lifestyle genuinely brings her contentment. Managing interactions with judgmental relatives requires deliberate effort and clear boundaries. The first step is to limit the frequency and duration of these interactions. By controlling how often one engages with such individuals, the emotional impact of their words can be mitigated. When conversations do occur, steering them toward neutral topics, such as shared memories or current events, can prevent them from devolving into a critique of personal choices. If the judgment persists despite these efforts, it is important to prioritize mental peace by excusing oneself from the conversation. This is not an act of hostility but a necessary step to protect one's well-being. The lesson to draw from such experiences is the importance of affirming one's own choices and living authentically. Life is not a performance for others to critique, it is a deeply personal journey. Seeking validation from others, particularly those who consistently undermine one's decisions, detracts from the freedom to embrace one's individuality. This principle is particularly relevant in later life, when the priority should be on cherishing the time and energy one has left, rather than spending it defending choices to those unwilling to understand or support them. The psychological toll of judgmental relatives underscores the necessity of self-care and emotional resilience. While their criticism often reflects their own insecurities or unmet expectations, it should not be allowed to dictate how one views their life. Instead, recognizing the limits of these relationships and focusing on positive, supportive connections can create a more fulfilling environment. People like Susan, who find solace in their own hobbies and passions, deserve to celebrate their lives without the shadow of unnecessary judgment. Ultimately, interactions with judgmental relatives highlight a broader truth about relationships: not all connections are nourishing. While family ties are important, they should not come at the expense of mental and emotional health. As individuals, We have the right to decide how much influence others hold over our lives. By setting boundaries, redirecting conversations, and excusing oneself from toxic dynamics, it is possible to preserve peace and joy. The lesson here is both empowering and liberating. Your life is yours alone to live. And the opinions of others, however loud, should never drown out your own sense of purpose and fulfillment. 2. The constantly negative relative. Relatives who are constantly negative can have a profound impact on one's emotional and mental well-being. These individuals often carry a pessimistic outlook on life, habitually complaining about circumstances, people, or even moments of happiness. Their negativity creates an atmosphere where the focus is on flaws and grievances, leaving little room for optimism or joy. This habitual complaining not only shapes their worldview but also affects those around them, especially when these interactions are frequent or prolonged. The effects of constant negativity are far-reaching and deeply impactful. Being regularly exposed to such behavior can weigh heavily on one's mental health, causing anxiety, emotional exhaustion, or even a sense of pessimism that was not previously present. This emotional toll becomes more significant, and the negative relative is someone you interact with often, as their outlook has the potential to influence your mood, energy levels, and overall perspective on life. Consider John, a retired teacher who finds peace in his morning walks. However, his brother's daily calls, filled with complaints about politics and family disputes, not only dampen John's mood but also disrupt the sense of routine and tranquility he seeks to maintain. Over time, these interactions begin to cast a shadow over his otherwise peaceful mornings, illustrating the cumulative effect of exposure to negativity. Addressing the influence of a constantly negative relative requires a deliberate and proactive approach. The first step is to reframe your perspective. Recognize that their negativity is often a reflection of their own internal struggles or dissatisfaction with life. It is essential to separate their outlook from your own emotional state, understanding that their complaints are not a reflection of you or your circumstances. This mental shift helps to build a psychological boundary, allowing you to maintain your emotional equilibrium even in the face of their persistent negativity. Another effective strategy is to steer conversations toward positive or neutral topics. By redirecting discussions, you can minimize the opportunity for them to dwell on grievances or complaints. For example, focusing on lighthearted topics such as shared hobbies, positive memories, or general current events can create a more neutral space for interaction. This approach not only reduces the emotional toll of the conversation but also encourages a shift in their focus, albeit temporarily. Limiting the time spent with negative relatives is another crucial step in protecting your well-being. While it may feel uncomfortable to distance yourself from family, it is important to recognize that your mental health is a priority. Setting boundaries around the frequency and duration of interactions allows you to control the extent of their influence on your emotional state. To counterbalance the negativity, make a conscious effort to engage in uplifting activities afterward. Spending time with friends, pursuing a hobby, or practicing mindfulness can help restore your emotional energy and reinforce a positive outlook. The overarching lesson in dealing with constantly negative relatives is that protecting your emotional well-being is not an act of selfishness but a necessary step toward fostering a fulfilling life. Surrounding yourself with positivity and gratitude becomes particularly crucial as you age, as these elements contribute significantly to your overall happiness and quality of life. By maintaining a supportive and uplifting environment, you create space for joy, resilience, and inner peace, even when faced with challenging relationships. Recognizing the limits of your ability to change others and focusing on what you can control, your own responses and boundaries, empowers you to navigate these dynamics with grace and self-assurance. 3. The self-centered relative. A self-centered relative often dominates conversations, steering them exclusively toward their achievements, grievances, or daily activities. These individuals rarely exhibit genuine interest in others' lives, prioritizing their narrative over meaningful dialogue. This behavior creates a dynamic where the relationship feels one-sided, leaving the other party feeling overlooked and undervalued. Over time, this imbalance erodes the essence of connection, as the lack of reciprocity denies opportunities for mutual understanding and emotional support. The impact of such relationships can be deeply disheartening. Consistently feeling invisible or unappreciated in interactions with a self-centered relative can lead to emotional fatigue and a diminished sense of self-worth. For example, Mary, a retired nurse, finds herself in this dynamic with her niece, who visits solely to vent about personal problems. Even when Mary attempts to share her experiences, the niece quickly redirects the focus back to herself, leaving Mary feeling unheard and used. This ongoing pattern underscores the emotional toll such relationships can take, as they undermine the very foundation of mutual respect and empathy that should characterize familial bonds. Navigating these relationships requires a deliberate approach that prioritizes self-respect and emotional balance. The first step is to assert your desire for a more balanced interaction, politely yet firmly expressing your need to share, such as by saying, "I'd like to tell you about my day as well," helps establish that your voice matters within the conversation. This direct communication not only sets a boundary but also highlights the need for reciprocal dialogue. While it may not always lead to immediate change, it is a critical step in advocating for yourself within the relationship. Limiting interactions with self-centered relatives can also be an effective strategy. While it may feel uncomfortable to reduce time spent with family members, prioritizing your emotional well-being is essential. By setting boundaries around the frequency and duration of these encounters, you can minimize the negative impact of their behavior. Additionally, redirecting your energy toward reciprocal relationships, where your presence, experiences, and emotions are valued, can help restore balance and fulfillment in your social life. Investing in these connections ensures that your time and emotional energy are spent with individuals who genuinely care about and celebrate you. Forgiveness also plays a significant role in managing relationships with self-centered relatives. While forgiveness is not an excuse for their behavior, it is a tool for liberating yourself from frustration and resentment. By releasing the emotional burden associated with their actions, you regain a sense of control over your emotional state. Forgiveness allows you to move forward without being weighed down by negativity, fostering a sense of inner peace even in the face of challenging relationships. The overarching lesson in dealing with self-centered relatives is the importance of valuing your own experiences and ensuring that your voice is heard. Your stories, feelings, and contributions are significant and deserve acknowledgement. Spending time with people who recognize and celebrate your worth is not only validating but also enriching. Such relationships serve as a reminder that connections should be mutually supportive, fostering growth, understanding, and shared joy. Ultimately, interactions with self-centered relatives highlight the necessity of boundaries, self-advocacy, and prioritizing relationships that uplift rather than drain. By recognizing the limitations of these one-sided dynamics and focusing on nurturing connections that bring mutual fulfillment, you create an environment where your emotional well-being is protected. This approach empowers you to navigate challenging family relationships with grace and resilience, ensuring that your time and energy are spent in ways that truly enhance your quality of life. 4. The drama maker. A drama maker relative thrives on chaos. often reigniting old conflicts and stirring tension within the family. This individual appears to derive satisfaction from creating discord. Whether by revisiting past disputes or sowing seeds of new disagreements, their behavior disrupts the harmony of family gatherings, turning what should be opportunities for connection into battlegrounds of unresolved issues. This pattern not only strains relationships among family members but also casts a shadow over the emotional environment, making interactions feel more like obligations than joyful occasions. The impact of a drama maker's actions can be deeply unsettling. Their behavior frequently causes unnecessary stress, disrupting the peace and balance that are especially important in later years. This stress can manifest in various ways, including heightened anxiety, frustration, or even physical symptoms like headaches or fatigue. For example, Grace, a grandmother, notices her son repeatedly bringing up past family disputes during gatherings. These discussions inevitably lead to arguments among her other children, leaving Grace feeling anxious and dreading future family events. This anxiety disrupts her sense of emotional stability, creating a cycle of stress tied to what should be moments of familial connection. Addressing the challenges posed by a drama maker requires a deliberate and measured approach. The first step is recognizing their behavior as a consistent pattern rather than isolated incidents. This recognition allows you to separate their actions from your emotional response, understanding that their need for conflict is not a reflection of the family as a whole but rather an individual dynamic they perpetuate. By seeing this as their pattern, you can avoid internalizing the chaos they create and maintain a sense of perspective. Setting firm boundaries is another essential strategy. When a drama maker attempts to draw you into their conflicts, excusing yourself from the discussion is a powerful way to assert control over the situation. This may involve physically leaving the room, changing the subject, or politely declining to engage in contentious topics. These boundaries signal that you will not participate in perpetuating the drama, helping to protect your emotional well-being while also discouraging their behavior. Establishing these limits may feel uncomfortable at first, but it is a necessary step to prioritize your peace. Focusing on relationships with family members who bring positivity and support is equally important. By redirecting your energy toward those who value harmony and mutual respect, you create an environment where family interactions are uplifting rather than draining. These connections help to counterbalance the negativity introduced by the drama maker, reinforcing the value of supportive relationships. For example, instead of engaging with a drama maker at a family event, you might choose to spend your time with relatives who share your desire for a peaceful and joyful atmosphere. The lesson to take from interactions with a drama maker is that peace is an invaluable asset, particularly in one's later years. Allowing someone else's chaos to overshadow your well-being is a choice. And by establishing boundaries and prioritizing supportive relationships, you reclaim control over your emotional environment. This approach is not about cutting ties or avoiding family altogether but about creating space for positivity and serenity to thrive. Protecting your peace is an act of self-care, one that acknowledges the value of your time and energy and ensures they are spent in ways that enhance, rather than detract from, your quality of life. Ultimately, the presence of a drama maker in the family highlights the importance of self-awareness, boundary setting, and intentional relationship management. By recognizing their behavior for what it is, refusing to engage in unnecessary conflicts, and focusing on connections that uplift you, you safeguard your emotional and physical health. This approach allows you to navigate challenging family dynamics with resilience and grace, ensuring that your golden years are defined by tranquility and joy rather than unnecessary discord. 5. The overly dependent relative. An overly dependent relative places a continuous burden on you by relying excessively on emotional, financial, or practical support, often without considering your capacity to provide. This behavior creates an imbalance in the relationship, as their constant need for help can overshadow your ability to address your own priorities and desires. The dynamic often arises from a lack of self-sufficiency on their part and a sense of obligation or guilt on yours, making it difficult to establish healthy boundaries. The impact of such dependency can be both emotionally and practically draining. Over time, their reliance on you may leave little room for your own needs, leading to feelings of frustration, exhaustion, or even resentment. For example, Robert, a retired engineer living on a fixed income, finds himself regularly lending money to his nephew, who struggles due to poor financial choices. While Robert initially feels compelled to help, the increasing frequency of these requests strains his resources and adds stress to his life. Despite this, he hesitates to say no, driven by a sense of guilt and familial obligation. This situation exemplifies how dependency can create a cycle of burden and guilt that is difficult to break. Managing the relationship with an overly dependent relative requires open and honest communication. It is essential to have a candid conversation about your limits, framing it as a matter of self-preservation rather than rejection. For instance, saying, "I need to focus on my financial stability," clearly communicates your boundaries without dismissing their struggles. By articulating your constraints, you establish a foundation for a healthier dynamic, where their expectations align more realistically with what you can provide. Encouraging them to seek support from alternative resources is another critical step. Dependency often stems from a lack of awareness or access to other means of assistance, such as counseling, community programs, or financial planning services. Guiding them toward these resources not only reduces their reliance on you but also empowers them to take responsibility for their own well-being. This approach demonstrates care and support without compromising your capacity to meet your own needs. Redirecting your energy toward activities and relationships that rejuvenate you is equally important. Overly dependent relatives can consume significant emotional and mental bandwidth, leaving little space for self-care or fulfilling interactions with others. By prioritizing hobbies, friendships, and experiences that bring you joy, you restore balance to your life and protect your well-being. For example, if a dependent relative's demands have limited your social interactions, dedicating time to reconnect with supportive friends can provide emotional renewal and perspective. The broader lesson is that supporting others, while admirable, should not come at the expense of your own health and happiness. It is natural to want to help loved ones, but it is equally vital to recognize your own limitations and prioritize your well-being. Feeling guilty about setting boundaries is a common but misplaced emotion. Establishing limits is not an act of selfishness but a necessary step in maintaining a healthy and sustainable relationship. Ultimately, navigating a relationship with an overly dependent relative involves a balance between empathy and self-preservation. By having honest conversations, guiding them toward alternative sources of support, and reclaiming your time and energy, you create a framework for a more equitable dynamic. This approach not only alleviates the burden on you but also encourages the relative to develop greater independence. In doing so, you foster a relationship rooted in mutual respect and understanding, ensuring that your own needs are not sacrificed in the process. This balance allows you to continue supporting your family while maintaining the peace and fulfillment that are essential to your overall well-being. Conclusion. As we navigate the later stages of life, the importance of peace, joy, and meaningful connections becomes clearer. Recognizing and setting boundaries with relatives who drain rather than uplift us is an essential act of self-care. This isn't about cutting ties but about preserving the precious time and energy we have left. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your journey, share in your joy, and respect your boundaries. These are the relationships that enrich your life and make your golden years truly fulfilling. By embracing these truths, you give yourself the gift of a life well lived, filled with love, laughter, and the serenity you've earned. What steps will you take to protect your peace and prioritize joy in your golden years? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Wise Elders Insights, for more empowering content. Together, let's make the most of this beautiful stage of life.